Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the EMT Spot's Blood Pressure Podcast.
It's great to be back.
I'm Samuel Harrison,
I'm Olivia Harper.
and today we are going to do a deep dive into wide pulse pressure.
It's a fascinating topic,
It really is.
a really important one for understanding heart health.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
to kick things off, can you just give us a little bit of a definition of what exactly is pulse pressure?
Sure, so pulse pressure, you can think about it this way. Every time your heart beats, it sends out a surge of blood through your arteries.
Mm-hmm.
That's creating pressure against the walls of the arteries, and that pressure is highest when your heart beats.
Okay.
And we call that the systolic blood pressure. It's the top number in a blood pressure reading.
Right.
Then as your heart relaxes between beats, that pressure falls, and that's what we call the diastolic blood pressure. That's the bottom number in a blood pressure reading.
Okay.
So pulse pressure is just the difference between those two numbers.
Okay, so like if my blood pressure was, say, 120/80,
Exactly.
then my pulse pressure would be 40.
You got it.
Okay, easy peasy.
Exactly.
So we've got that basic understanding, but when does a pulse pressure become considered wide?
Yeah, that's the key question, right? So a normal pulse pressure is typically between 40 and 60 millimeters of mercury.
Okay,
Anything above 60 is generally considered wide.
got it.
And here's why we care about that. When your pulse pressure is wide, it often means that your arteries are becoming stiff.
Oh, like an old garden hose.
Yeah, exactly.
That's lost its flexibility.
Perfect analogy. And that stiffness makes your heart work harder to pump blood throughout your body.
So even if it's just a little bit over that 40, like 42 or something like that, that still means that the heart's working harder.
Yeah, absolutely. Even small increases above that normal range can put extra strain on your heart.
Wow.
And especially for people who aren't very active, that can increase the risk of some serious health problems,
Look what?
like irregular heartbeats or arrhythmias, as they're called, and even stroke.
Oh, wow.
So it's definitely something to pay attention to.
So if you are active, though, does that kind of negate that a little bit?
It can, actually.
Okay.
Because regular exercise helps keep your heart strong and your arteries more flexible.
So it's like a good workout for your arteries, too.
Exactly.
I like it. All right.
Yeah.
So hitting the gym, going for a walk, all that good stuff can help keep our pulse pressure in check.
Absolutely.
Are there other risks, though, associated with it, even for people who are active?
There are, unfortunately.
Okay.
Research has shown that high pulse pressure can be linked to damage in the kidneys and even your eyes. And that's especially true for people with conditions like diabetes.
Okay.
And if you have high blood pressure on top of a wide pulse pressure,
Oh.
the risks really start to multiply.
Okay, so give me an example of how that works.
Sure. So imagine you have two people. They both have a pulse pressure of 60,
Okay.
but one person has a blood pressure of 180/120.
Well, that's really high.
Very high.
Yeah.
The other person has a blood pressure of 140/80, which is still elevated, but not as severe. So even though they have the same pulse pressure, the person with that higher overall blood pressure is in a much riskier situation.
So it's really like adding insult to injury.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay, so wide pulse pressure, a red flag on its own,
Yes,
but even more so when combined with those other health issues.
absolutely.
So it's something we should definitely be paying attention to. But what if I don't feel any different? Are there symptoms to look out for?
You know, it's interesting because wide pulse pressure often doesn't have noticeable symptoms, at least in the early stages.
Oh, so it's like a silent threat?
It can be, yeah, if it's ignored.
Wow, okay.
But if you pay attention, there are some subtle signs that might pop up over time.
Like what?
Things like swelling in your ankles or feet,
Okay.
difficulty breathing, feeling faint or dizzy,
Okay.
persistent headaches, just overall weakness or heart palpitations.
So our bodies are trying to tell us something.
They are.
It's up to us to listen.
Exactly.
Okay, so what causes wide pulse pressure in the first place?
Well, in most cases, it boils down to some kind of change in the heart, either structural or functional.
Okay.
The heart's having to adapt to a new reality, so to speak.
So what are some of the usual suspects? What are some of the most common causes?
Well, there are four main causes that we see fairly often: stiffening of the aorta valve, regurgitation, hyperthyroidism, and anemia.
Okay, let's start with aortic stiffening. What is going on there, and how does it lead to wide pulse pressure?
So your aorta is the main artery that carries oxygen-rich blood from your heart to the rest of your body.
Good.
It's kind of like the grand central station of your circulatory system.
I love that analogy.
And over time, the aorta can become damaged and less flexible. Sometimes that's due to fatty deposits building up on its walls.
Yeah.
Other times it's because of prolonged high blood pressure that's constantly stressing those artery walls.
Like that garden hose again getting stiff,
Exactly.
losing its elasticity.
And so when the aorta stiffens, it can't expand and contract as easily with each heartbeat.
Okay.
So it puts more pressure on your heart.
Because it has to work harder to push the blood through.
Exactly. And that extra effort leads to that wider gap between your systolic and diastolic pressures.
Fascinating.
Mm.
Okay, what about valve regurgitation?
All right. So think of your heart as having 4 doors.
Okay,
These are your heart valves.
right.
And they make sure that blood flows in the right direction.
Got it.
Valve regurgitation, which is also sometimes called a leaky valve, happens when one or more of those doors doesn't close properly.
So some blood is leaking back in the wrong direction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that backflow messes up the normal blood circulation in the heart. It reduces the amount of blood being pumped out with each beat.
Okay.
And to compensate, your heart has to work harder,
Again,
which leads to, you guessed it, wide pulse pressure.
wider pulse pressure. Okay, so we've got stiff aorta leaky valves. Now, what about hyperthyroidism?
So hyperthyroidism happens when your thyroid gland produces too much of a hormone called thyroxine.
Okay,
And this hormone is kind of like the gas pedal for your metabolism.
so too much thyroxine metabolism goes into overdrive.
Exactly. And that revved up metabolism can lead to a faster heart rate
Right.
and sometimes even an irregular heartbeat.
Okay.
Both of those can contribute to wide pulse pressure.
So it's not just about the heart itself. Other systems in the body can have an impact.
Absolutely.
Wow, okay. And how does anemia fit into all of this?
So specifically, we're talking about iron deficiency anemia,
Okay.
which means you don't have enough healthy red blood cells to carry oxygen throughout your body.
And iron is what we need to make those red blood cells.
Exactly. So if you're low on iron, your body can't make enough red blood cells, and your organs and tissues don't get enough oxygen.
And that makes the heart work harder.
Exactly. When your body is starved for oxygen, your heart has to pump faster and harder to deliver whatever oxygen it
To
can.
compensate.
Mm-hmm.
And that can lead to a wider pulse pressure.
Okay, so we've got the stiff aorta, leaky valves, overactive thyroid, and iron deficiency. Are there any other causes of wide pulse pressure that we should be aware of? Yeah, those are some of the most common ones, but there are definitely other less common conditions that can contribute.
Okay.
So it's always best to talk to your doctor if you notice a consistently wide pulse pressure so they can investigate the underlying cause and recommend the best course of action.
Great advice. Okay, so before we move on, I want to touch on a couple of additional risks associated with the wide pulse pressure that I found pretty alarming.
All right.
First, the research shows that wide pulse pressure increases your risk of developing atrial fibrillation.
Yeah, atrial fibrillation, or AFib, as it's often called, is a type of irregular heartbeat that can lead to blood clots, stroke, heart failure, and other serious complications.
And studies have shown that people with wide pulse pressure have a 23% higher risk of developing AFib.
It's a significant jump,
Yeah.
and it really highlights how important it is to take this condition seriously and be proactive about managing it.
The other risk factor that stood out to me was the link between wide pulse pressure and coronary artery disease, the most common type of heart disease.
Right? Coronary artery disease happens when the arteries that supply blood to your heart muscle become narrowed or blocked,
Okay.
usually because of plaque buildup.
Okay.
That's a mix of fat, cholesterol, other substances.
So it's like a traffic jam in your arteries preventing blood from reaching the heart muscle.
Exactly, and that can lead to chest pain, shortness of breath, and even heart attack.
And studies show a strong correlation between wide pulse pressure and the development of coronary artery disease.
They do.
So it's not just an isolated issue.
Nope,
It's often linked to these other serious heart conditions,
it is.
which makes monitoring and managing it even more crucial.
Absolutely. It's a really powerful indicator of overall cardiovascular health.
Well, this has been eye-opening so far. We've learned a lot about what wide pulse pressure is, why it matters, what causes it, and the potential risks associated with it. But don't go anywhere.
There's more to come.
Stay tuned, because when we come back in part 2 of our deep dive, we'll be exploring ways to manage and even reverse wide pulse pressure through lifestyle changes and medical interventions.
Yeah.
You won't want to miss it.
Stay tuned. Welcome back to the show.
I imagine some people might be feeling a little bit overwhelmed after learning about all of those risks associated with wide pulse pressure.
It is a lot to take in.
It is. So let's shift gears and talk about what we can do about it.
Absolutely.
Is there hope? Can we manage or even reverse wide pulse pressure?
There is absolutely, it's not a life sentence. The good news is that with the right approach, you can often control wide pulse pressure and really improve your heart health.
Okay, that's a relief to hear.
Yeah.
So where do we even begin? What are the most important steps to take?
I think the first and most crucial step is to work with your doctor to figure out what's causing your wide pulse pressure in the first place.
Yep.
Remember we talked about how it can stem from a variety of different things like stiff arteries or valve problems, thyroid disorders.
So you got to find the root of the problem
Yeah.
before you can fix it.
It's not just about treating the symptoms. It's about addressing that underlying issue.
Okay.
And once you've tackled that, then you can focus on lifestyle changes and medical interventions to manage your pulse pressure and boost your overall cardiovascular health.
Okay, let's start with lifestyle changes. What are some things that people can do in their everyday lives to make a difference here?
So there are a few key areas to focus on. If you smoke, quitting is absolutely non-negotiable.
Yeah.
Smoking damages your blood vessels, makes them more rigid, more prone to stiffening, which directly contributes to wide pulse pressure.
It's bad news all around.
You said it, another game changer is regular exercise.
Okay.
Physical activity strengthens your heart, it improves blood flow, it increases the flexibility of your arteries.
What kind of exercise are we talking about?
Aim for at least 30 minutes of moderate intensity exercise most days of the week.
Okay.
So that could be brisk walking, swimming, cycling, dancing, anything that gets your heart rate up.
So find something you enjoy and make it a part of your routine. It shouldn't feel like a chore.
Shouldn't feel like a chore.
Right. And alongside exercise, maintaining a healthy weight is also super important.
It is.
Being overweight or obese puts extra stress on the heart and blood vessels, increasing the risk of wide pulse pressure and other cardiovascular problems. How much weight loss is actually enough to make a difference?
You know, even a small amount of weight loss can have a significant impact on your heart health.
Okay.
Losing just 5 to 10% of your body weight can really benefit your heart.
So it's not about drastic changes. It's about sustainable, healthy choices
Exactly.
over time.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about quitting smoking, getting regular exercise, managing weight. What about diet? Does that play a role in managing wide pulse pressure?
Absolutely. A heart-healthy diet is essential for keeping your blood pressure and pulse pressure in check. You know, think of it as fueling your body with the nutrients it needs to thrive.
Okay.
Focus on loading up on fruits, vegetables, whole grains, lean protein sources, and healthy fats.
And limiting processed foods, sugary drinks, saturated and trans fats, all that.
You got those unhealthy choices contribute to high cholesterol, high blood pressure, weight gain, which can all worsen wide pulse pressure.
It's all about making those smart swaps,
It is.
giving our bodies the good stuff.
Yes.
What about stress management? How does stress impact pulse pressure?
Well, when you're stressed out, your body releases hormones that temporarily increase your blood pressure and heart rate.
Right.
It's like your body's going into fight or flight mode.
Okay.
And that can lead to wider pulse pressure readings.
So finding healthy ways to manage stress, like meditation, yoga, spending time in nature, can be beneficial.
Absolutely. Anything that helps you relax and de-stress can have a positive impact on your cardiovascular health.
Now, we've talked a lot about lifestyle changes.
Yeah.
What about medical interventions? Are there medications that can help manage wide pulse pressure?
Yes, there are. Your doctor may prescribe medications to help lower your blood pressure,
Okay.
which in turn can help reduce your pulse pressure. Some common medications include ACE inhibitors, ARBs, calcium channel blockers, and diuretics.
I've heard of those. Can you just break down how they work?
Sure, so each medication has a different mechanism for lowering blood pressure. ACE inhibitors and ARBs help to relax your blood vessels, while calcium channel blockers slow down your heart rate and relax your blood vessels. And diuretics help your body get rid of excess salt and water, which can also help to lower blood pressure.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Definitely not.
The specific medication that your doctor prescribes will really depend on your individual needs
Exactly.
and health history.
Absolutely. It's important to work closely with your doctor to find the right medication and dosage for you. And of course, it's crucial to take your medications as prescribed and follow your doctor's instructions carefully.
Consistency is key.
Consistency is key.
When it comes to managing any health condition, especially something as important as your heart,
Couldn't agree more.
I'm curious about other approaches. Are there any less conventional or emerging therapies that might hold some promise for managing wide pulse pressure?
Yeah, that's a great question. And while lifestyle modifications and traditional medications are really the cornerstones of treatment,
Sure.
there is growing interest in complementary and alternative therapies that might offer additional benefits.
Like what?
Well, some studies suggest that certain supplements like omega-3 fatty acids and magnesium might have a positive impact on blood pressure and arterial health.
Okay.
And, mindfulness practices and biofeedback techniques for stress reduction could indirectly benefit pulse pressure management.
Right.
However, it's important to note that you should always discuss these complementary therapies with your doctor
Right.
before incorporating them into your treatment plan.
To make sure they're not interacting with any medications you're taking
Exactly.
or pose any other health risks.
It's all about working with your doctor to create a safe and effective treatment plan.
It sounds like finding a personalized approach is really key here.
I couldn't agree more. It's about you and your doctor working together to develop a plan that addresses your unique needs and helps you achieve optimal cardiovascular health.
This has been such an informative discussion on managing and potentially reversing wide pulse pressure.
Yeah.
It's encouraging to know that there's so many things that we can do to take control of our heart health.
It's a journey and not a destination.
Right.
And it requires ongoing attention, commitment to healthy habits, and regular communication with your doctor.
But it's a journey worth taking.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we are back
Back for the final part of our deep dive.
into wide pulse pressure.
It's been quite a journey.
It has. So let's bring it all home with some key takeaways for our listeners. What's the most important message that you want people to walk away with today?
I think the biggest thing is that if you're dealing with wide pulse pressure, it means your heart is working harder than it should be.
Right.
It's a warning sign.
Mm.
And it shouldn't be ignored, but the good news is
There is good news.
there's good news. It's not a life sentence.
That's right. We have the power to take action,
We do.
make positive changes for our heart health.
Exactly. And a lot of those changes are within our control.
Right?
Remember all those lifestyle modifications we talked about? Quitting smoking, exercising regularly, maintaining a healthy weight, eating a heart-healthy diet.
Hmm.
Those are all things that you can do to improve your heart health and manage wide pulse pressure.
It's empowering to know that we're not just passive bystanders.
We're not.
We can take charge.
Absolutely.
And if lifestyle changes alone aren't enough,
Right.
there are medications that can help lower your blood pressure and reduce your pulse pressure.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's so important to work closely with your doctor to find the right treatment plan for you.
So early detection, proactive management, strong partnership with your healthcare provider.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
All key.
And remember, even if you haven't been diagnosed with wide pulse pressure,
Mm-hmm.
it's never too early to start taking steps to protect your heart.
Prevention is the best medicine. It really is all those same lifestyle recommendations.
Mm-hmm.
We've been talking about eating well, exercising regularly, managing stress, avoiding smoking.
Yeah.
They benefit everyone.
Regardless of blood pressure readings,
Exactly.
it's about making healthy choices,
It is.
part of your daily life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have the power to make choices that support a healthy heart and a longer, healthier life.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into wide pulse pressure. We hope you found this episode informative and empowering.
We did.
If you have any concerns about your blood pressure or heart health, please don't hesitate to reach out to your healthcare provider.
It's so important.
A huge thank you to all of our listeners for tuning into the EMT-SPOT's Blood Pressure Podcast. I'm Samuel Harrison,
I'm Olivia Harper.
and we'll see you next time for another deep dive into the world of blood pressure and heart health. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast, leave us a comment, and share it with your friends and family. Until next time, take care of your heart.